afternoon, everyone, or early morning for anyone here. Thank you so much for joining this session. This is essentially one of our breakout sessions on functional ingredients for dairy. We're joined with Thomas Turner, the co-founder of Cultivated Biosciences. Just a reminder that this is an interactive session, so if people do want to turn on their cameras, ask any questions after Thomas has run through his presentation, please do feel free. You can ask any questions in the chat box, or you can put this essentially in person and turn on your cameras. But Thomas, I'll pass over to you for your introduction and presentation.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Melanie. So hello and welcome, everyone. To quickly present myself, my name is Thomas Turner. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cultivated Biosciences. I started working on creating creamy fats using yeast fermentation and solve a bit the problem of texture in plant-based dairy. I've been told that there are some people who will join in a couple of more minutes, so I will wait until 5:05 to start my actual presentation. In the meantime, I also invite you to put on your cameras and let me know, either by just saying it out loud or writing in the chat, more like what drove you to come to the session.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, hello, Pierre.
Hey, Thomas. Well, yeah, sure, I can share something. I saw this event a couple days ago, and I'm quite knowledgeable of the student challenges in Wageningen, Wageningen University Research, and I believe you participated in that, didn't you?
Exactly. We participated at the Reefing Protein Challenge. I think you have even met the person that I was collaborating with at the time, Julia. And yes, since then we have been developing actually very quickly. So I'm very happy that we are also, thanks to the Reefing Protein Challenge of Wageningen University, that set a bit the bricks for what we're building now.
Yeah, it's super great to hear. Well, yeah, that's basically what brought me here. Was like, hey, I'm very interested to see where you guys are.
Yeah. Really great. Fantastic. Anyone else want to share while we still wait for two more minutes for other participants to join in?
Yeah, I'm happy to mention. I'm Jane Staniforth from Reading Scientific Services Limited in the UK, and we provide a broad range of technical and scientific services to support the food industry and ingredients industry with analytical testing and food product development services. And so we're helping a lot of clients in this area generating the right analytical data to bring products to market, commercialize them, get the right regulatory approvals, etc. So yeah, good to hear what's going to be said. Looking forward to it.
Fantastic. And I take the time also to welcome who is joining us from all the parts: Sihan, Mina, Anna, Bjarne, Katja, Huri. I will also invite you to put on your cameras on and join us in a discussion. As mentioned, I will start talking more in a minute about more what we do, so people have time to join us. I see also Yu, who will have a presentation afterwards, is joining us. So I invite you also to go to his session in an hour. I will definitely do so too, because both of our companies are in our very interesting area of alternative fats. I will talk a little bit about it. I actually do not know very much about what Plantbased is doing, so I'm very curious about listening to what he has to say in the next session. Fantastic. I see that a lot of people are joining now. So I think I will kick it off and share a bit more about Cultivated Biosciences, about functional ingredients for plant-based dairy, and especially fats that we are developing. I will talk mainly from the perspective of cultivated biosciences, and then try to draw some pictures of, like, in general, how the industry is and what I believe will be the challenges and also timelines of this industry. But yeah, quick word about myself. So as mentioned, my name is Thomas Turner. I'm the co-founder of Cultivated Biosciences, a very early stage startup, only founded only this year. And we are working on creating creamy, dairy-free indulgence. So we want to give consumers the same experience that they've grown up with eating dairy, but skipping the animal. And well, why we are having this Congress, I believe, well, it's not news for anyone, and it's also the COP26 happening right now, is because we need biotech solutions to fix a solution of our intensive animal products. And there it comes in many problems, from the antibiotics feeding their antibiotic resistant crisis. The vast CO2 caused only 4% of the CO2 emissions caused by the dairy industry, and the very controversial animal welfare problem that we need to find a better solution with. And biotechnology can be definitely a part of solving this game. And a lot of people are trying to work on this, and there is this big emerging sector, which is plant-based dairy, that is growing very quickly. According to ProVeg Incubator, it will be worth 37 billion in only 4 years. It's growing very quickly, but still we have some challenges. There are a huge amount of companies that are popping up. This is a map done by Kind Food Tech, and this was only of last year, so probably there are many more companies that are growing, and this is, I think, are mainly CPG companies. There are also more that, like us, are more B2B side, but most of these companies face a very similar challenge, and many go on the market and face reviews like this one. And many bad reviews or bad consumers' reaction and the subsequent going back to dairy products is due to texture. And I will specifically talk more about texture, because Cultivated Biosciences, we are a texture company. Flavor and taste is something else that is tackled by other companies, and definitely is a challenge by itself. By talking about texture, fats is incredibly important. The microstructure, the melting properties are very important. And the two tools that are available today, palm and coconut oil, are labeled by consumers as unsustainable or unhealthy. In general, they do not want it on the ingredient list. And also, by personal experience, as an idealistic student, I was trying to convince my father to eat a plant-based yogurt. And as you can see in this picture, didn't work. Something is missing. Consumers feel that there is something missing. And this thing that's missing is the creamy indulgence of dairy products that we need to bring in, and we need to bring in using fats. So in this fats space and for dairy, we are a few companies. I did not actually include, there is lipid, of course, but on other sides, I would put it in 3 categories that are also the same of alternative proteins. And I will make the case also for where I am, fermentation. So there is the plant-based side that is working on ameliorating a bit the oils present in plant-based. And this is very good, and that you can work on different things like olosome, thymotropic milkman, or changing the chemical structure like apogee, but you are still a little bit limited to your raw material, and especially on the huge time cycles it takes on changing and creating new crops. On the other side, we have cell-based, where they grow mammalian cells, and also this is a very exciting industry, but there are still huge questions that needs to be resolved on the price points, on the solvability at scale, while fermentation has already been proven at scale. We know how to produce large amounts in fermenters of 200 or 500 meter cubes and several thousands of tons. We know how to use cheap sources of raw materials like molasses and transform it in high value products. And we also know how to work with yeast, either with non-GMO approaches like our company is doing, or also with more gene editing like Nourish ingredients and Molten Marble. And I really believe that this will be really enabling ingredients for the whole industry. And also, in the words of Alejandro Marangoni, who is probably the biggest authority in the field of fats, he wrote a very recent paper that I really invite you to go and look. He said that single cell fats and oils could be the next frontiers in food research. Without large amounts of fats, plant-based meat and cheese mimetics will never succeed. And I think this is also where pretty much this generation of plant-based dairy has a block, and we need to work with companies like mine or others to really come to the next generation. So what are we at Cultivated Biosciences doing, and what is our approach? I already mentioned that we work with yeast, so yeast fermentation. We work with a GMO approach, a GMO-free approach. So without doing any changes in the DNA, we work with yeast that naturally produces large amounts of fats that are cholesterol-free, and then we can extract in order to have a microstructure, to have a texture very similar to cream. So we are still in early phases. We have a prototype, a proof of concept of the extraction of our cream, and we can see that we have low lipid oxidation. This means that we can have a longer shelf life, and in the future we can work with several different species to have a different fatty acid profile and customize the properties of the final product to the needs of our clients, to which we will sell our fats. I will also share a little bit of an idea to give you a more visual idea of what to extract. This was me this summer extracting.
This is a yeast feta extract, and it's nice, viscous and creamy. It spreads very well. A small taste. You really this round, creamy feeling.
So this is to show us a bit. We taste our product and we know how it feels and tastes, and is also it's important also to check things that it's actually white or things like this, which is fundamental for the dairy industry. So also give an idea of more in fermentation. How does it work? So the process is relatively simple, quite similar to what you do in brewery. We take our GMO-free yeast, we feed them with sugars. For the moment, we're using sucrose, but in the future, we'll be able to use also byproducts. We ferment them, extract these creamy fats using our extraction process, and then we can go and work on several different target applications. So this can be, in the beginning for us, will be probably high-end, so working on confectionery, artisanal ice cream, go to more middle-end products, cheese, coffee creamers, and then when we are reaching full scale, our industry can go more in commodity dairy products like milk, and then expand, of course, also to other places where fats and cream is needed. So also give you an idea of what our roadmap is. And then I will pretty much, I think timelines along the fermentation industry is relatively similar, to also give you an idea when we have grams and then when we will have kilotons. So right now, our startup is R&D driven startup. We are doing process development and will be on production scale. We aim at the end of 2024. Also on regulatory side, we will need to have quite a lot of work, and I will talk about this in a moment. On the business side, we are doing the classical business development, gathering LOIs from important people in the industry. From in Switzerland, the Micro. I forgot to mention that we are a Swiss startup, so we are based in the land of cheese. So yeah, we are getting LOIs from the nut company Micro. In the future, we'll talk Nestle, and we'll start probably looking at doing test launches in 2023. And we will continuously checking the market, and there we really see a very big excitement. I was a couple of weeks ago at the Plant World Expo and discussing with the different plant-based dairy producers. After 5 minutes of discussions, the vast majority tells you, yeah, no, actually, we're not happy with the texture. We need to work on that. So that is really something that we'll continue working on, being very close to our potential clients. I also make a small advertising side note. So we are currently fundraising. So if you want to talk about that, feel free to reach out to me. And in the future, we'll be hiring soon. So keep tuned on that. So I mentioned the regulations, and that is something very important and a bit of a headache for our industry. And often we look at different authorities. The one that interests me and most companies are the FDA in the US, the European Food Safety Authority in Europe, in the European Union, and also the Singapore one. Of course, there are many others and many others interesting markets. But why I'm talking about these? Well, it's because it's very important that they take different time and limit a bit the way you can enter market. As a Swiss company and working in the framework of the European Union, we are mostly looking at the European Food Safety Authority, which in the current state often acts as a brake to innovation. Why? Because we need to do safety studies, which is very comprehensible, and then it takes 2 years to process this and go through the European Food Safety Authority and the European Commission. And at the end of that process, my startup, if we can't launch at that time, we're dead. That's why, as a European startup, we need to look and launch in other markets. For example, in the market of the US, where the FDA is, of course, has the same safety studies, but if we do what's called a self-GRAS approval, it takes only a few months to enter the market after we have done the safety studies. Or also the Singapore Food Agency, where you can pretty much do drip-in safety studies. Here I put approximately 3 months. Of course, for all of this, I advise you to go to a regulatory expert. I'm not the authority on this, but also to give you a sense of the big challenges there is for biotech ingredients to go into food. Regulatory is a huge challenge. So yeah, I'm coming to the end of my presentation. I would like also to acknowledge all the great people that are working with me. My co-founder, Dmitri. We have our amazing advisory board with professors and other entrepreneurs that are bringing really great expertise, and also partners from university, also Proveg Incubator. As mentioned, we have different things going on right now, so feel free to look us up, contact me on my email. I try to answer all my emails relatively quickly, and yeah, looking forward to discuss with you more about the future of plant-based dairy, how biotech ingredients can solve which of the different plant-based fermentation and cell-based, where do you see them coming, the ingredients, and also what you think of our solution.
Thank you so much, Thomas. If you're okay, you can stop sharing your screen now. Thank you so much for the introduction. Obviously, I want to open the floor to anyone that does have any questions for Thomas, just in regards to the presentation. Do feel free to show your camera. You can either ask your question in the chat box or feel free to speak up. I guess, obviously, to kind of kick off the questions, Thomas, I guess, you know, a couple of the questions that we've discussed, I guess, really kind of for yourself, what do you see are kind of the main challenges in developing functional ingredients for dairy right now?
So definitely, as mentioned, regulatory challenges are a bit of a headache, more because it's usually startups, we work very much on this iterative process, test and learn processes. But for regulatory, every time you have a new prototype, you need to go through all these regulation packages, and so you can't have as quick feedback loops, and that is definitely a big challenge. I would say that is a big thing. When it comes to fermentation specifically, we as an industry, we are definitely slightly limited by the capacity. So definitely it's something also that needs to be worked upon, how to create more fermenters that people can use in that.
Not a problem. Perfect. If anyone obviously does have any questions, I've just posted in the chat box. Do feel free to ask anything there, or if there's anyone that has a question at the moment, do feel free to kind of bring that to the attention. I guess kind of also, Thomas, you know, again, from kind of our feedback, what kind of would you say, you know, fat is a major component of dairy products? Would you say that there's a lack of fat alternatives in the dairy market at the moment, and kind of what would be your thoughts on that?
Yes, definitely. In plant-based dairy, there is a lack, as mentioned in the beginning of my presentation. The people are working pretty much sometimes with palm, pretty much all the time with coconut oil. The only reasons they do it is because coconut oil is solid at room temperature, and when you cook it, it melts. But it's not the one that tastes the best. It's not the one that has the best functionality for other reasons. So definitely we need much more variety. And I presented my startup, what we do, but also the other startups are developing something that I think we need all these approaches to really fulfill the mission of creating something that can replace the industrial animal agriculture.
Perfect, brilliant. Is there anyone that kind of has any comments in regards to alternative plant-based? Please do feel free to kind of mention in the chat or kind of speak up, that's no problem. Thomas, then, I guess kind of in regards to where you see the future of kind of other alternatives, what would you say is kind of needed within the next 5 years to kind of get you guys to the point that you need to be at?
So, well, funding and right talents, definitely. So I invite anyone who can help us with that to reach out to me. For the rest, we will need, as mentioned, like more dynamic regulatory processes, people that work on creating capacity that our fermentation industry can use all this capacity and can scale up. That is definitely very important. We'll need clarity from policymakers to how we can label things, and try also to make sure that if we do a product that behaves exactly like dairy, that we can label it like a dairy-like product, and that we can use all these things. I think the Good Food Institute is probably the best authority and working a lot on this in both the EU, the US, and other legislations.
Perfect. I think Thomas, there's just a question in the chat box just asking what if tweaking texture changes the taste? If the taste was optimized, I'm having trouble separating texture from other attributes of food.
Yes. So pretty much when I say we work, so we don't work on, when I say taste, I think more flavors, aromas. So as we are a non-GMO company, we don't work on making sure that the yeast produce the same flavor compounds that you find in milk. That if you want to solve that problem, probably you don't talk to us. We are laser focused on creating the right texture. Still, as you mentioned, texture might be very connected to taste. So we are working on creating this creamy feeling. So we work a lot on mouthfeel and we optimize for that.
Perfect. And I guess kind of going back to your original point on scale up as well, do you think that there needs to be changes within the supply system and ecosystem at the moment for alternative dairy products to kind of really achieve what you guys are looking to, do within the next few years?
I'm not an expert on the supply chain. What I can say is that at least fermentation has the potential of improving and shortening supply chains, as compared to dairy. Right now you have, for example, in the US you have all cows in the Midwest, and then you ship everything to California, to the coast. Fermentation requires much less land, so you can actually produce much closer to where the end product is. This is, of course, with the caveat that we need anyway economies of scale. So of course there will be a trade-off, but still fermentation and production of dairy through fermentation can provide things closer to the final consumers.
Yeah, definitely. I know you spoke about regulation within your presentation. How do you kind of see the process of alternative protein, sugar ingredients kind of from the US market to other regions?
Definitely the US market, both in terms of regulations and consumers, is often pioneer. That's why probably as our startup will start establishing itself relatively soon in the US and will start launching in the US, because it's easier. The FDA, it's a bit easier to work with than the European Food Safety Authority, and US consumers are more flexible on their choices regarding food than the average European consumer.
Yeah. Would you say that new consumers are kind of changing their preference and there's kind of certain barriers that they want to overcome with what they are consuming in regards to kind of new novel ingredients?
Yeah, I think the biggest, general food tech has seen the biggest barriers where there are very strong culinary traditions, and in general, strong culinary traditions are a good thing, I must say. So in places like Italy or France, alternative proteins are having much a harder time to enter compared to Northern Europe. So definitely there is this aspect that is very important.
Yeah, perfect. I guess kind of my final question to you really would be, obviously you've spoken very much about how partnerships and investment are important within kind of your company, within the industry in general. What do you think is kind of missing from the market to, progress these partnerships and investments within kind of the alternative dairy products?
Could you repeat the question, Melanie?
Of course. So I know obviously you spoke very much about partnerships and investments, how it's very important to progress the work that you guys are doing within dairy alternatives. What kind of do you feel that would be beneficial within the industry to kind of increase these partnerships that you guys are working on, increase the investments and really use that method of scale up for this industry?
Yes, definitely. More more early stage funding is needed in the industry to boost us.
Yeah.
More funding to, as mentioned, that might be tied to promises of scale up capacity is very, very important. And also some strategic co-developments will be needed to have some either SMEs or also corporates taking the risk of saying, I want to innovate, I want to try out these experimental products and use my production line for some moments to try this, because long term it will give me enough returns.
Yeah, perfect. If anyone has any kind of last questions, please do feel free to bring them up or mention them in the chat box. Thomas, kind of just while anyone's thinking of anything, do you kind of have any closing remarks just in regards to the subject and your thoughts?
Yeah, no, in general, I think it's a very promising sector. I see that Mozilla of Mush Labs is here, so I would love to see if Mush Labs have any idea of, like, they're a bit more advanced than us, working mainly in meat, and if they see any parallels and also lessons learned that us tackling the dairy industry should learn from them.
Of course, Mario, if you are free to perhaps comment on this, that would be greatly appreciated. No problem at all. Perhaps it might be a conversation to pick up later in the session, in the meeting. But yes, of course, thank you everyone so much for your time. I'll kind of just ask if there's any last minute questions that people would be keen to have answered or thoughts. If not, Thomas, thank you obviously so much for your time and the presentation, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the meeting, and we look forward to speaking with you all soon.
Fantastic. Thank you, Melanie, and thank you everyone for joining in.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye.